commercial real estate is a little bit different. You run into some barriers and some challenges that don't necessarily exist on residential, and that is some people don't even want to sell to you. And it kept going. I ended up selling that place a few years later for double what I paid for it.
Wow.
That's passive. That's passive.
I want to ask you, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you? Like, a lot of areas are getting gentrified now, and it's getting to a point now, like, what isn't gentrified? So what does the next form of real estate look like when it comes to that? Welcome in, everyone, to MBA Unplugged. My name is Charles Winfrey, your host. I'm a freshman business finance major from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm alongside my co-host, Professor James Young. He is a professor of finance here at Morehouse College. Behind the camera, we have our videographer, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Francis Ryan Mathis. Had to say it by his real name, Francis. But today we are honored and privileged to have our guest today. So our guest is a graduate of Morehouse College. He holds his JD from Creighton Law School. He is the founder of the Jonathan E. Leonard PC, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated, and he's an entertainment lawyer for names such as Mrs. Janelle Monáe, T.I. or Tip, King of the South, and he is a real estate investor, Mr. Jonathan Leonard. Mr. Leonard, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm well. I cannot complain.
Good.
Professor Young?
I'm great, man.
That's good.
Founders Week.
It is. Mr. Leonard, before we begin, I have to ask, are you a big football guy?
Yeah, I'm a big sports fan, man.
How we feel about the Super Bowl?
It was a good game. Good game. I wasn't as vested, I guess, in either team or whatever, but enjoyed the game. But I thought they both did a good job, and it was entertaining.
It was. I see in this introduction I made, member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and if I remember correctly, during halftime, Usher brought out some noops.
Brought out the noops, yeah.
Crazy. I never thought I would see that, but that was a cool moment to see. So, like you said, it is Founders Week, and I kind of want to start this conversation off with kind of a reflection on your end. So, doing all that you've done throughout your career, very successful. What did Morehouse mean to you as it is Founders Week, and how did Morehouse really have an impact on your life?
Man, like in every kind of way, Morehouse is a unique place in that I think you have here the saturation of focused individuals that get here. A lot of times you end up going to college and people are not as focused and don't really know where they're going or where they're trying. They don't understand necessarily what their goals are. Morehouse is different. I got here and I was one of those that was not as focused and didn't really have my direction plotted out as I probably should. But I had classmates that did in an unbelievable way. And so by watching them and just assimilating to kind of the way they were doing things, the focus, we talked to, offline, obviously, Professor Young about the business department and Ben McLaurin and all of the students that were involved in that, the kind of focus that they had, that rubs off on you if you're in that environment. And I saw it, and it rubbed off on me. My first job out of undergrad was with Northern Trust Company in Chicago, and I got that job not through interviewing here at Morehouse, but through one of my line brothers who was at the bank, Ron Moore, Ryan Moore, who was in the business department. Yeah, he was in commercial banking at Northern Trust, and he plugged me to one of the HR people. They offered me a job. I moved there, worked in operations and mortgage-backed securities for a couple of years before going on to law school. Right. So when you asked me about Morehouse and what impact it had on me, it was everything. And I could go on and on and on and on. The stories, like so much of what I've been able to accomplish is a direct result of the relationships I built here and what I learned here.
Yeah, and there's really no place like it. And what I really took from what you said is all of your peers and how it rubs off on you. In a way, it's just iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many, the best of the best come here. And like, for example, where I'm from a white high school, and you were the best black boy from the town. But coming here, it's just a place of they're all around you. And it's just like having those group of people rub off on you, these relationships. Like, this is a prime example here, relationships built from the college days and experience. But so I want to pivot here into kind of your career. Like I said, you are a real estate investor. And a lot of our watchers, a lot of people in general, really want to get into real estate. And having skin in the game, which you already do, what would you tell someone who's looking to get into real estate?
So I say this to a lot of people early on that are saying, oh, I want to get into real estate investment. The first thing I would say, make your first real estate investment your home. If you use that as kind of a model, make that a deal for you that's beneficial, because a lot of people go out and when they start looking for a house, they just look for what they want.
That's right.
They look, oh, I want this number of bedrooms. I want this type of backyard. I want a deck.
Or a certain neighborhood or something
like that. Those types of things.
Yep.
Not often are they thinking about, is this a good deal financially? And I think if you couple those two things, which you should, because if you're buying a home, a home should always work for you. We were talking about another one of my line brothers, Bertram Sears, who passed away about a year ago now. And he was, in school with us. And I remember we called him Buddy. Buddy saying to me, this is not long after I'd moved back to Atlanta after law school, and he had bought a duplex over on Monroe. No, it was on Piedmont, just off of Ponce de Leon. And he said to me, my house always has to work for me. And I thought about it. Buddy was top of our class, Merrill Scholar at Morehouse. So this dude was brilliant. So you hung on to everything that he said. But he said, my house always has to work for me. It cannot just be a house. That's what he said. And I said, man, it stuck with me. Now I know what he means, is that you can use your own home as an asset to help you do other things, other transactions and that. If it's not a good deal, though, it won't be. It won't be. If you're upside down in it, if you owe more on it than you purchased it for, then it's not. You're upside down on it. So it's not a working asset for you. So that's the first thing that I would say to anybody who's talking about, oh, I want to be a real estate investor. Make your house work. Prove it by making your house work for you, doing the things that would enable you to have the discipline to purchase the kind of house that then on paper is a positive asset for you. Then you started.
Okay. So to clarify, when you say make your house work for you, for people who really don't understand that concept, you're meaning allowing it to grow in value over time, or is that what I'm understanding when you say make it work for you?
When I say just that's one of the elements of it working for you. Another element of it working for you is that you have, it is you have equity in it, and equity grows over time. I remember the first home I bought, which was a townhouse, and it was over in Summerhill, here in Atlanta. Over in Summerhill, this developer built these townhouses, and it was in an area that was not wasn't considered to be a nice area. Yeah. And even at the time, there wasn't a lot of downtown living in Atlanta. This was back in 96, the Olympics. I moved in it the week of the Olympics. Yeah. And so people weren't living downtown. I lived right next to where the Olympic cauldron was. And so I bought that place, and I thought I bought it because I had been looking for a year for a place. And through that year of looking, I was able to really understand what a good deal was. Like for like what's the actual asset, like what am I getting for what I'm spending, and how much am I actually spending for it. And so I bought that place. I liked it so much, I started telling and it was undervalued because people didn't really live downtown, and they were trying to lure people downtown. One of my Morehouse brothers, he and his wife were moving back to Atlanta, and they were looking for a place. And I told them, I said, really need to look at this development I'm in. You know, it's really cool. It's downtown. It's convenient, very reasonably priced. They bought a place just around the corner from me. About 6 months later, they paid 25 to 30% more than I paid for it in just about 6 months. So that was one of the first things that I learned about just appreciation.
That was your first lesson.
Like, oh, I just made
6 months?
Yeah, in 6 months. In 6 months.
That's
and
crazy.
if you buy in the right place,
That can
you know, and if you buy in the right place, because a lot of people don't care necessarily when they're looking at buying in the right place. What does the right place mean to them? It might mean the nicest area. I'm going to Buckhead. Well, that's easy. There's all kind of nice stuff in Buckhead. It's all built up.
Right.
It's got all the amenities and stuff. What about something that hasn't gotten there that may be headed in that direction? That's harder to identify.
Yeah.
And so in this case, I bought in an area where it was on the front end. The appreciation hadn't occurred yet. And so when you buy on the front end, then you get the benefit of that appreciation. And so just through that simple referral to that brother and his wife, knowing what they paid for theirs, knowing what I paid for mine, I knew I'd made that money. And so that's what I mean. And it kept going. I ended up selling that place a few years later for double what I paid for it.
Wow.
That's passive. That's passive benefit. And that's what I mean by things that are working for you. I then ended up moving over into to East Lake here in Atlanta. You know, I don't know if you know that area, but when we were in school, East Lake was the roughest area in Atlanta.
And now it's gentrified, and they play the greatest golf tournaments there. And I'm sitting there like, this used to be like just, you wouldn't even think about going over there.
East Lake Meadows. Go on NPR, watch that documentary they have on East Lake Meadows and what that area was. They called that housing development Little Vietnam. That was the name of it was East Lake Meadows. And so when I moved over there, it was that project development had been demolished. It just been demolished, and people didn't really live over it. It was still on the front end, and so I ended up kind of on a flyer buying a place there that then was super undervalued too. You can go in and buy places that are overvalued just the same all day.
But you know what's interesting? I see a common theme here, and the common theme is that you're willing to, and it's still under the umbrella of entrepreneurship, because that's you're speculating. Number one, you're trying to buy at the right price, with the hopes of it increasing in value. But the other thing I see is that, you know, to your point, I think your point is well taken. Buy your home first. See if you can understand that piece.
Yes.
You took that knowledge in two places that I personally know, and I'm sitting there and saying, okay, you took major risk, right? That helps you with your commercial deal.
Yes,
If
for
you
sure.
because you went into another area
Yeah.
that people don't want to do business in,
Right.
and now it's coming back.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that. How?
Yeah.
Okay, so you took your home experience, your personal resident, which I consider a utility. Now,
You got to live somewhere.
You gotta live somewhere. You gotta live somewhere.
May as well make some money while you know
live somewhere.
in that.
And,
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's the home. It's the place. And for Black people, it is probably still the number one asset that gets. That's still at the top of the pyramid in terms of assets. I mean, it's the one thing that they want. Okay, I mean, people, even when I went to school, you know, if you didn't have enough money to pay for school, okay, we'll just tap into the home equity line of credit and we'll pay for it and we'll figure that out later. But my question is, so how did you figure out the commercial piece?
So
Was it the same thought process?
yeah. So it was somewhat organic. I'd been passively thinking about investing in commercial real estate for several years. I started my law practice in 1993. I into the 2000s, I was at a position where financially I was in a place to be able to afford commercial real estate. And so I started to passively, and I say passively because I hadn't prioritized it.
Yeah.
I should have prioritized it,
Yeah.
but I had not prioritized it to say I need to make this part of my whole financial portfolio. And so I started passively looking, started to understand what the process was and some of the challenges in doing it, because commercial real estate is a little bit different. You run into some barriers and some challenges that don't necessarily exist on residential, and that is some people don't even want to sell to you.
Wow.
Some people don't even believe you can buy. And so I ran into that early on. And so I started dabbling and looking at deals, and after a couple of them fell apart, you fast forward.
Let me pause you there. Could you? And normally I don't do that, but let me pause you there. Are you saying that there were in the commercial space, people can decide they don't want to sell to you? Because in the residential, that doesn't. Well, it used to exist with the red line and all that stuff was going on, but now it's not. It doesn't exist as much. You sell once a home gets on contract, it's available for most people. But you're saying in the commercial piece.
They're not going to say that to you.
Right, I know that.
But you read between the lines and realize that's what's happening.
Wow.
I'll tell you, the very first commercial real estate deal I looked at, and it was a small building. I can't remember exactly what size it was. On a decent sized lot over in what just a little bit north of what's now called West Midtown, and just adjacent to between Howell Mill and Northside Drive. And it was a nice little building that would fit my needs perfectly. They had a sign for sale in front of the building. I cold called, walked in, I didn't have an agent. I walked in, asked for, who the owner was. The son of the owner was there. Son was very receptive to me, brought me into the conference room. We sat down, we started talking. He asking me questions about, what I done. By that time, I had been in practice for 15, 16 years, and had means to purchase that building. We talked about it. He seemed excited about the fact that I was in. I'd seen that sign several times, but then I said, let me go in here and see about this. So I sit down and we start talking. And he then brought his father in. And his father sat down. This was they were a construction company that operated their business offices out of that building. And the son, his energy towards me was very different, very receptive and
very positive.
Yeah. The father, I don't know what it was kind of what's a good word for distant to just I don't know what it was, but he was very distant. I believe he believed I couldn't either buy it or he did not want to sell it to me. That means that's speculation on my part, but there's no reason why this guy who had this building for sale, who had a for sale sign outside, and here I come in and he didn't know what my means were. Would be that distant to me and not, if I got something for sale and I'm trying to sell it,
trying to get rid of it.
Man, you come in and you want to talk to me, I'm open to you and I'm trying to get you the information, trying to learn about you and figure out how we make this happen. Yeah. Well, I left. We talked and I told him I would come back the next day. I came back. I called them. This was when I met with them. 3:30 in the afternoon. The following day, I called them by 9 a.m. and said, I want to place an offer on the building. They told me that morning, oh, somebody placed an offer on the building. From the time I left at 3:30 to 9 a.m. the next morning. I said, since just this evening? And they were like, yeah. And I said, okay, so I went back. I went to my agent, my broker, and I said, hey, they claim somebody's got an offer on it. And he said, tell them you want to put a backup offer on it. and we'll draft it and send it to them. We drafted a backup offer and sent it to them that same day to force their hand, because we didn't know whether or not we couldn't.
You didn't know if he was bluffing or not.
Yeah. And so we sent it to them, and they really drug me out for about 2 weeks before we actually put it in place. And what I think was happening was they started to work on other opportunities. That I can only conclude that they didn't want to sell it to me. For whatever reason, give them benefit of the doubt, that whatever. Yeah. But I don't think they wanted to sell it to me. But that was a lesson about commercial real estate. I think in that they could have thought, we don't want to fool around with this guy. He doesn't have the ability to do it. But they didn't know that, And so I learned those things. That was mid to late 2000s, like 2007, 2008, somewhere like that. Fast forward to me over the next 10 years looking at a few different deals, some of which fell apart for various reasons. Another situation where I think they didn't necessarily want to deal with me. Another situation where we got the deal done. I had the money to pay for it immediately, and then they tried to change the deal on me, and I walked away from it. Well,
so in that situation, you were a cash buyer.
Cash buyer, yeah. Cash buyer. The renovation of it, I was going to finance. Yeah, but oftentimes with commercial real estate, you have to be able to move quickly enough to purchase with cash. Yeah. If it's a really good deal, if you feel like it's a really good deal, that deal actually ended up not being as good a deal as I thought it was, based upon what I ultimately ended up doing. And that 2017 is where I was actively looking at this time. I found what was an old Bank of America building, which I had been into numerous times when it was a bank, over on Donnelly Hollywood Parkway. It had been closed. I didn't even realize it was closed because I didn't really go down that street a lot. It had been closed for about 4 years. It had closed. Bank pulled up out of this community, auctioned off the building for peanuts. This speculator guy bought it. He owned it. I can understand what his challenges were, because his goal of purchase and investment was different from mine. He wanted to buy it, put a leaser in it, and then but not spend money that would take to bring it up to, but just a bank. Yeah. A whole lot of businesses can operate in a bank building without some significant renovation. Right. So he wasn't willing to pay, and then that area would not support the types of businesses that he was probably getting interest for. My business was different. I'm a music attorney. The building was 4,500 square feet. I really didn't need but 2,500 square feet. So I was going to buy something bigger than what I needed, and then I started assessing the property. They increased the value of the property because the area was starting behind the scenes come back. And so we hassled a little bit on negotiated a little bit on the value of it. I purchased the building for cash for 3 times what the person purchased it for who got the auction. The guy that got it at auction, he sold it for me for 3 times what he had gotten it for after about 3 years. Wow. But there was another lesson though in commercial real estate is you can't count people's money. Yeah. You got to decide whether or not that property fits your needs. Is it a good investment for what your use of it might be, whether you're trying to flip it or whether you're just going to renovate it or whatever. And for me, I was going to move my law office into it. I was leasing. I'd been leasing for 20 years from over in King Plow, and that's money that was down the drain.
Yeah, so I really learned 2 lessons from what both of you guys just said. One was every event comes with a lesson. No matter the outcome, there is something that you can take from everything that you learn, good or bad. Yes. There's just something you can take. And the other part that you talked about is you have to be ready to react fast when opportunities present themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that is an example that ties back into another part of before we even get into real estate, there are certain things financially that we have to have in account. And those things have to be stable. And like Professor Young said, with the top of the black community of having equity in homes. And maybe there's ways that we're not there yet that we want to get to, but really talk about that part of what is the importance of having your things set on the back end in line before we even get to the part and being ready to capitalize on opportunities when they present themselves.
In my view, that's where discipline comes in first. Discipline and prioritization of your financial health. Those are the things that I think we as a community have not done as well as we can. And those are the things that lead to you being able to move quickly on opportunities when they present themselves. You don't control when opportunities
Right, and like you
present
said, it was
themselves.
another offering within the day, so it's like,
No, one.
well, maybe
Maybe not.
maybe a
That's
little
what they
biased,
said. But you want to be able to. You want to
Yeah.
be.
You get the gist.
You got to be able to move. You got to be able to move quick.
Yeah.
But what I had been practicing in just my life, day to day, which I learned from my parents, is just financial responsibility and discipline in building. Some of it I didn't even know I was doing, in terms of building a you go when you go to get a loan from a bank, the first thing they're going to ask you for is your personal financial statement. And that's basically your financial resume.
Right.
What do you look like on paper? And all of that is the things that we're talking about. The house part, that's on there. They're going to ask you, what real property do you own? How much do you owe on it? How much do you pay, every month for it?
Right.
And if you've done good deals on those things, if they say how much did you pay for it and how much is it worth, then that tells them whether or not that's been a positive financial transaction for
That's so
you.
important because a lot of people don't know that part of. If we look at biggest billionaires in the world, almost 90% of them own real estate. When we talk about generational wealth, it's like, how do we start to invest in real estate?
Yeah.
And if to get to that step, like you just said, a lot of people don't even know the part of their financial statement showing their financial health. And it's just like, so.
Well, it takes discipline to get there, and that is controlling your emotions, not to go out and purchase things based on just what you desire.
Trends.
Like, okay, what kind of, if you're not thinking about what that property is, if you're looking for a house and you're not thinking about what that property is worth to you beyond the transaction in terms of value, then you're not analyzing it properly. But that's just one piece of it, because that's going to be on your personal financial statement. Right. Other piece, what kind of cash do you have? Like, have you put money away? What kind of investments do you have? Are you starting to invest? They're looking to see, is this person a good financial risk?
Yeah. But here's the thing about it. You brought up a good point. I'm glad you said it. You can have all this real estate, but if you're not, that's probably the most illiquid of all your assets that you're going to have.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like a business. Cash is king.
Yeah.
And if you got investments, in terms of stocks and stuff like that, those things you can convert pretty fast. Cash obviously is pretty fast. But you also said something that that resonated with me, and it just popped in my head, that even in your journey and you started to look at bigger deals, then you start dealing with different people that don't look like us. Number one. And they decide, you know what, I don't want to sell it. For whatever reason, they don't want to make. They don't want to make. I'm just it's going to be point blank here. They don't want to sell to a black person, and that could be real, right? And I'm going to tell you why that could be real, because even when we take our fraternity brother, when I think about Reginald Lewis, when he tried to do his first deal, and when he tried to do a deal buying a leisure furniture company out in California, and I remember reading that. And he had the deal ready, he had the cash, he had everything lined up, blah, blah, blah. And they met. He comes home to New York thinking he's got a deal. He gets a call, no deal. Don't know why.
Yeah.
They end up selling to someone else. Don't know why.
Yeah.
But deep down inside,
We know.
he knew it was because of
Yeah.
the color of his skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that stuff is real.
Yeah.
That stuff is real.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
and no matter how you flip it, you know, this is something we still have to deal with. And it's
Right.
2024.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And we can't control that.
We can't
It's
control
not.
that.
It's not going to go away. Well, hopefully it will go away, but it's there. You know,
It's there.
It's a reality. But I also, in my experiences, as it relates to the commercial real estate, we started to talk about, you know, my journey in starting to do, you know, bigger kind of commercial real estate transactions, and it was kind of, like I said, organic. I'm practicing law. That's my bread and butter, practicing law. But I ultimately saw that I'm paying a considerable amount of money to this company to lease this space, and I've been doing it for at that point I've been doing it for for 18 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a long time. Like one lease, and I'm like, man, I'm good money for them every month for the last 18 years.
Yeah.
And so I found the property that was perfect for me to move my law office into, and so I purchased that one cash. You know, again, I've been working for a long time.
Better be careful with saying all this cash now. More else is listening.
Well, you know, I'm trying to do better, giving back and doing those
Y'all need to
things.
call Jonathan Leonard. He keeps talking about buying all this property for
Check this man out.
cash.
Who is this?
Well, we you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to do it. It was a suppressed area. The building was undervalued,
Right.
even 3 times more than what the guy had bought it for at auction.
Yeah.
Still undervalued based upon what, you know, the renovation and what my use would be. And so purchased it for cash, then went to the bank to finance the renovation of it. And first thing they asked for, personal financial statement. They're looking at all of my line items. Where do I stand? Like what my income is? What kind of cash
you a
do I
liability?
have? And are you a good? I mean, they want to see what I've been paying rent. They wanted to know how much you've been paying those people rent for that you've been renting for X numbers of years, and all of that stuff was documented. So when they do this isn't even you know, complex financial stuff. They look at it and they're like, here's what his mortgage is going to be here. Here's what he's been paying already. It's not a significant difference. That's even after, you know, we financed a loan. This dude's been in business for all of these years. He's got consistency, and we know that. This is not, he didn't make up his tax return. Yeah, proof of all of those things through your documentation. And so I had I had banks begging me to do this. It wasn't a situation where the banks were like, we're not gonna loan him this money. They looked at the documentation, and the documentation supported it. And then we closed the loan to do it, and it just, you know, it worked out fine. So I took that building, which was 4,500 square feet. I added 6,000 to it because I had the space in terms of the whole lot, which was almost an acre, and it was a bank, so it had a drive-through area that was just concrete that. It wasn't parking. I already had 40 parking spots. So I said, why not add as much square footage to this building as I could based upon the footprint.
So now it's 10,000 square.
Now it's 10. So, and I said, okay, well, if I'm gonna be here, I may as well have space that I can lease to others that then, you know, generates income for myself. And so that's what we did. We did that. I stayed in that, you know, I'm still in that building. We started the purchase in 2017, finished the renovation in 2020, and my law office is housed there. I have another tenant there. I still have space that I haven't built out, and I didn't build it out because adjacent to my building was a 12,000 square foot blighted building that had not been entered in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And so that was another lesson to me, because I was looking at some other properties and thinking maybe I'll buy this other property instead of buying this property. Well, one of the lessons I learned is what's happening around me when I'm looking at commercial real estate. Are there other opportunities to expand, buy other things that are immediately adjacent to you or across the street or whatever? This building was sitting there. A church owned it. Over the years, it was built in 1962. Over the years, all types of businesses have been in it, but nobody had even gone inside the building in 20 years. And so, out of nowhere, I get a call from a major healthcare provider that said they liked the building that I had renovated, and they wanted my building. They said, "Hey, we like what you did. We saw that building. We think it's incredible because it kind of stands out. This is a kind of depleted area.
Yeah, it stands out because it looks good. It's new.
and not a whole lot of private development that happened up and down this corridor, although this is pretty close to the city. And so they said, we want that. We like that building. Would you be willing to, do you have this amount of space to lease to us? And I said, I do in the back. They don't want to be in the back. They wanted the space that my law office was in too. They wanted me to move. And so I said to them, hey, there's a building next door. You could do that there, and it's probably a better building. But I said, over time, it's a better building once you renovate it. And they didn't want to do it because it didn't allow them to do it at the speed that they wanted to. And so I told them, well, mine's not available. What I have here is, it sounds like it doesn't work for you. They threw money at me. They said, look, we'll move you back up into your other space. We'll build that out for you. We'll make that nice for you. And here's another part about the discipline and also being in a position financially where you don't have to just jump at everything that's thrown at you.
That's right.
And they thought, it was clear to me, they disregarded the fact that I told them it wasn't available to you. They took my plans. They were like, do you have your plans to the building? I'm like, yeah, here's the plans. Here's a CAD file from my architect. They were on the Zoom with me, had my space pulled up, moving me around, putting me in other parts of my building because they knew I was going to take their offer and the money that they were trying to throw at me. And I was like, it's like I don't even know. It's like, what would you take to do that? Like, how much money would you take to move up there? I said, I hadn't even thought about it. I said, and if I did and I told you, you probably wouldn't like me. I said, because there's not a value on it. I put a lot of time into this. Yeah. Now that is, being in a position to do that is valuable to you because now I was able to direct them to the building next door, which I said, I will buy that and we can do that deal there. It's going to take a little bit more time, but in the long run, it's better. Yeah. You're going to have your own building. I'll own it and rent it to you. And so we did that. We ended up doing it.
I bought some more property.
I bought the building next to it, which was 12,000 square feet.
So now you got 22,000 square feet.
It's 22,000 square feet right there in an area. Microsoft bought 90 acres, so a mile down the street from me.
Already going up too.
Having gone to a place that wasn't the most popular place, but understanding that this is literally downtown. I drive 2 miles and I'm at Coca-Cola. And so all of these things happening around me and have kind of the courage to go in there and take that risk. There's going to be some risk in it. It's not
that could be risky going into an environment or a community that it looks run down, and then no one knows what's going to happen. But the probability that this does turn into something like in your case, I mean, and that could present a lot of risk for some people, holding them back from taking deals.
Here's also part of the benefit. We're both from Nashville.
Right.
I grew up in North Nashville. When I was born into what was projects, and we're, it wasn't, that area looks not much different from where I initially was born and lived as a kid. So I wasn't fearful of it.
Yeah.
And so that's part, you partly have to get over the fear of certain things. With risk, there's reward. If there is no risk, then the reward may not be there.
But that's a great point, because one thing that is so true in entrepreneurship, if you don't have the stability to take a lot of risk, you can't reap that much of a reward. And I don't know how to rephrase this as a question or just an open-ended question. For someone to take substantial amount of risk, they have to be able to get substantial amount of reward. And if they're not in the financial space to be able to take that risk, how can someone expect to be able to reap the rewards, maybe in your case or other
Well,
cases?
some just maybe have to have the courage. I'll give you an example that like in my business, I represent music talent. I've been doing music deals for 28 years. All of my clients that have benefited in a significant way prior to them reaching that level of stability and consistency, they were on the brinks of collapse. Like they are the prime example of passion and going,
That's what you said.
all out, putting everything on the line when they have nothing. Like about to get put out of their apartments, sleeping on people's floors, all of them, 8, 9 people living in the same place. And their name after name after name that I could share that took that kind of risk for themselves. That's risk too.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anything.
And people don't see it that way.
Yeah.
They don't understand because like it's this or bust.
Yeah.
And,
right.
And
They put it all on the line. It's
put it
going
on-
all in.
I'm putting my chips all in. I'm
Right.
betting on myself.
Yes.
And I know that all too well. When you bet on yourself, people are going to sit there and say, I don't want to do this. And I've literally bet on myself, and I've made some mistakes. And I've had to but the one thing I do know how to rebuild. I knew how to fix. And I think that's what you're talking about. They're on the brink, and they're like, but you help them
Yeah.
push them over the edge.
Right.
Some
And-
kind of way you get it figured out. And once you
Yeah.
get it figured out, then that's
Yeah.
kind of game over at that point.
No, so the examples of that are there, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have all of the money. You just have to have the risk averseness where you are willing to take that chance, and so I didn't move in over there buying those buildings in that area where nobody was trying to. It's been over there for years. They weren't trying to do it, and so I took the risk to go over there, and then good things started. I didn't control those things, but just like you said, you're kind of a speculator. You're looking.
But I think I think you're humble, and I respect that. But I'm not going to minimize your guts, because every area you have mentioned, I'm laughing here. Every area you mentioned it was
bad.
It was World War III.
Yeah.
And I'm
Which is a
like,
lesson.
Every time you say, okay, Summerhill,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
and then you said East Lake, okay, and then now you're over in
Grove Park. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, so every area,
Yeah.
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 So now at this point, nothing
used to-
scares you,
Yeah.
which is a great thing.
And the lesson to take from that is that to get the upside comes when you take that risk to be in places that people don't want to be.
Position yourself to reap that upside.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like I said, growing up, being comfortable with the, urban environments with our people where a lot of people don't view as the best places to be was a benefit, to me too. I was talking about discipline earlier, and just I didn't talk much about making it a priority. That's another thing, man. Just recently, I called a friend who I know wanted to be a homeowner, and the friend has been renting for quite some time, has 2 kids, gainfully employed, and wants to be a homeowner. And so I learned at a business association meeting that meets at my office every month, a representative from one of the local banks was there, and they're looking for like investment first time home buyers, and they've got all these incentive plans. You got things like the banks have their incentive down payment plans. You've got Invest Atlanta that has all types of incentive down payment plans. You've got Atlanta Housing Authority, all of these plans. The representative told me of a young lady who had gotten $50,000 free grant money basically towards a new home in that community where my office is. It's 50 grand. Down payment that you don't have to pay back. She told me the different places where they got it from.
Free equity.
Free equity, the thing that we were talking about that makes your house work for you. I called this associate who's been looking for, talking to me, and I'm like, well, I don't really know how to do that, or I need this, and it's not that tough. It's really not. Everybody's doing it, so it's really not that tough. So don't block yourself out. And so I sent this information to the person, and they looked at it, and their response to me in a text was, I just can't even wrap my head around that right now. That's a lot. That's what the person said to me. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to try to beat. Here's somebody I've been talking to. They clearly want to do it. It would be, they don't own now. They're gainfully employed. It would be benefit. This is the way you make passive money, where you're not running around and and wouldn't prioritize it enough to take advantage of things that I put right before them. If you don't prioritize this and make it a point to be financially stable and healthy for yourself, why not make it like my question to that person is, if I come to you and I say, I can tell you a way to make $200,000 passive money in the next 2 years, would you say, yeah, I'm interested? What's I'm telling you, this is the way you do it. You come into an area like this. People are moving in there like crazy now. Renovations happening all over the place. Gentrification is happening all over the place. Why would you not, if that opportunity exists, try to do it if you're really perfectly kind of positioned to do it? But no, you would much rather go and be on social media presenting this type of and doing whatever it is you're doing to present a lifestyle and the thing that doesn't really exist for you. You're prioritizing the wrong things. And so that's one of our problems is we prioritize the wrong things. I went through all of these things when I was, in my 20s, and I'm sure Professor Young, you did, cars and
Everybody has a phase.
Well, you desire those things. I don't think I ever got to the point where I really, went over the top on those things. But I grew out of those things over time. I valued other things above it. I valued my security. I valued my future, and I prioritized those things. And so, sounds very basic, but we have to be disciplined. We have to prioritize the right things and then build those things. When the opportunity hits,
you got to be ready.
You got to be ready to go.
There's just so many lessons that you just said right there. Like, you really just summed it up right there. Discipline, being ready to capitalize off of those opportunities. So the last question, as we begin to wrap up, Mr. Leonard, what I want to ask you is, we've talked a lot about the past, a lot of examples, your deal experience, a lot of interactions that you've had. And I want to ask you, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you? Not necessarily, I would pertain it to be toward real estate specifically. I mean, as we know, we talked about, like, a lot of areas are getting gentrified now. And it's getting to a point now, what isn't gentrified? So what does the next form of real estate look like when it comes to that?
Yeah, well, there are always good deals.
Right.
But good deals take time to find. And you have to be looking. You have to be doing your research, have to have your eyes open, and you have to be prepared to move quickly when it comes. I would love to do, more real estate. I don't hold myself out to be a developer. I was joking with my tenants for this second building who, they start referring to me as a developer in the beginning stage, and I'm like, I'm not a developer. And they're like, no, you actually are a developer.
You actually are a developer. You went from 4 to 6, 4 to 10 to 20.
You got that portfolio now.
Yeah,
you get into that point.
Where it was truly done in a kind of organic kind of way that fit for where I was and the uses that I had and the opportunities that I had. And so in that regard, But I day to day am an attorney,
Right.
and you know, I do music deals, and so that's the thing that is the priority for me in terms of day to day work. But I'm now, because I do now understand how to take a blighted building and put it back online.
Developer.
Yeah, and so I mean, I learned so much in the last 6 years of doing both of those buildings that I look at and I say to myself, like, wow.
Look how far you've come.
I'm gonna tell you where it really hit me was when I got my tax bills for the tax bill for the second building this in 2023. And I know, you know, so I know what it was before any renovation to it. And then I know what the value of it is assessed by the city after that. And it blew me away. I was mad because I said, my property taxes are ridiculous on this thing now.
Yeah, but you created that.
But I looked at it and I said, well, here's what I did immediately though. Between those two buildings, I looked at the equity that now exists in them based upon the way in which those deals were put together, and the equity in my law practice that I've been working at for 30 years. I've been practicing law for 30, you know, I'm in my 31st year practicing law. And I've done, you know, I've been fortunate and done well and built a business there. But the short period of time is just full with two buildings that I kind of did on the side in comparison to the time I put in practicing law over the last 30 years. Yeah. It's night and day.
Yeah.
And I did that. There was some effort put in the development of those buildings, but when I add the time together and the way it grew without me running around and doing all of the things that I have to do to practice law and all the time and effort that goes into it, it opens your eyes and you say, wow. You talked about the most the people that are the wealthiest in the world are real estate owners.
Right.
It's a reason for that. You know, it's a reason for that. It's not like
It doesn't just
happenstance.
happen. I think that's such a testimony to what you said of what you learned in these 30 years to these 6 years. It's just a testimony of getting started. Like, for everyone out there, you can watch all the videos on YouTube, you can take all the courses, but the amount of knowledge that you will learn actually taking part in the deal or finally opening that business is incomparable to what all these videos and courses will show you.
And that's why I say on your house, because you got to live somewhere.
That's right.
Make that a deal. You know what I mean?
Get your foot in the water like that.
Yeah.
But you know what? In your 30 years versus the 6 years, you just learned that you can be really efficient. That's how you make your money.
Yeah. How do you do it passive?
And
You know.
you're efficient with it. You don't have, it didn't take you 30 years to build this. It took it. But all that. But here's the deal, though. That 30 years of you negotiating,
Right.
and we never even talked about this, and that's okay. Some of your top clients and negotiating their catalogs and negotiating their, because this, you know, it's a nice, after I didn't know, it's a nice list, right? But you learned how to negotiate. You learned how to see holes. You learned how to recontract, that kind of stuff. So then when you got to another space, you were able to execute a lot faster, more efficient.
Yeah.
Because you had learned that in those 30 years.
Yeah. No,
So,
it is.
So you can't discount what you learned. You just say, okay, I learned all this. It took me a while, but guess what? Now I know it. I'm gonna accelerate it
And apply it.
and apply it hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Leonard, I want to thank you for your time. All of the knowledge
Absolutely.
that you dropped was really a blessing. Professor Young, I want to thank you for yours.
Absolutely.
And does anybody have any last words? I want to get a shout out once again to our cameraman, Ryan Mathis, sitting behind the camera. But any last words from anyone?
Man, I'll just say thank you to you all. It's always a blessing to me to come back to Morehouse and sit down and
Founders Week
talk to Founders Week, talk to students and share, you know, what wisdom that I've gained over my years that, you know, hopefully I can pass on and share. And hopefully some of what I say it resonates in some way, and as you all go on through your journeys, you can apply some of those things, and that's why I do it. So I feel like you gave me an opportunity to do that. So
we
thank you.
appreciate you, Mr. Leonard. Thank you guys for watching. Professor, you have anything else
I'm
to say?
good, man. I'm
right.
glad you came, and
Man, absolutely.
you're doing great things, and hopefully there's a student out there that's like, okay, I got to put in the work. I got to be prepared for that opportunity.
Yes.
And I think that's the big lesson. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
you being here.
Absolutely.
And to that one person,
Yes,
just
sir.
go do it. Just start.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you guys for watching. Catch you on the next one. Peace.
All right.